I never thought the people who raised me would treat me like I was broken beyond repair. But there I was in the living room of our family home in Austin, Texas with my parents, my aunts, and my younger sister Athena all staring at me, as if I had committed the ultimate sin. This was their intervention and ambush disguised as love to force me to end things with Zara, the woman who had brought light into my life for the past 2 years. My mother Linda started with a shaky voice saying, "Kayla, we love you too much to watch you throw away your future like this." And as the words hit me, I felt the walls closing and wondering how my own blood could see my happiness as a disease that needed curing. The air was thick with the smell of my mother's famous coffee that no one was drinking. Dad Robert sat with his arms crossed, his face a mask of disappointment that I had seen only once before when I dropped out of law school to pursue teaching. Athena, who was 22 and still living at home after college, kept her eyes on the floor, but I could feel her judgment from across the room. She had been the first to react badly when I came out 2 years ago quoting scripture and saying that it wasn't the life our family stood for. Now here we were in this circle of pain. They had prepared notes and even invited our pastor for a phone call later. I gripped the edge of the couch, my heart pounding as Mom continued. "We have watched you change since you met that girl, and we know it's not you. Zara is confusing you, pulling you away from God and from us. You need to choose your family, Kayla." The words cut deep because family had always been everything to me. Growing up, we were the picture-perfect Vietnamese-American household, my parents having immigrated and built a successful small business through hard work and faith. They expected the same for their daughter's marriage, kids' stability. Instead, I fell in love with Zara, a free-spirited artist I met at a teachers' conference in Dallas. She was everything I wasn't: bold, creative, unapologetically herself. Our first date was a simple walk in the park where she made me laugh until my sides hurt, and for the first time I felt seen, not as the responsible older daughter but as me. As the intervention dragged on, they brought up every argument they had saved. Aunt Susan talked about how society would never accept us, how I would face discrimination at work. I wanted to scream that I already faced it every day, but hid it to keep the peace. Inside my mind was a storm. Part of me understood their fear. They had sacrificed so much for us, and now I was choosing a path that challenged everything they believed. Was I selfish for wanting love on my own terms? Zara and I had talked about this the night before when I told her about the family dinner that turned into this trap. She had said if they love you they will come around, but her eyes showed the worry that they might not. I loved her deeply, but the guilt was eating me alive. Athena finally spoke up, her voice cold. "You know this is wrong, Kayla. I've seen how it affects Mom and Dad. They cry at night. You're breaking our family apart for what, a phase?" Her words stung the most because we used to be close. As kids we shared everything, but my coming out had created a wall. She had avoided me for months, refusing to meet Zara. Now her opposition felt like betrayal from the one person I thought might understand one day. The hours passed with more stories of how my relationship was a rebellion against my upbringing. They showed old photos of me as a kid in church dresses and asked where that girl went. I tried to explain that I was still me but happier now. Zara didn't change me, she completed me. But they wouldn't hear it. The pressure built like a vice and I felt tears coming. How could I choose? If I walked away from Zara, I would lose the one person who made me feel alive, but staying meant losing the family that shaped me. The internal battle was exhausting. Every decision seemed to come with a devastating price. By the end of that first session, I was emotionally drained, not knowing that the biggest shock was yet to come from the last person I expected. The family continued for hours with more stories and prayers. Mom recalled how she had given up her career to raise us and expected the same devotion. Dad talked about the American dream and how my choice was throwing it away. I responded with stories of my happiness, with Zara describing how we supported each other through tough times. Like when I lost a big client and Zara stayed by my side helping me rebuild my portfolio. The inner thoughts continued with me, questioning my identity and the right and wrong of my choices. The price was already being paid in the tears and the broken trust. The rain outside matched the storm inside me, each drop a reminder of how everything was washing away. I recalled the exact moment Zara and I first kissed under the stars at a rooftop party in downtown Austin, her lips soft and sure. And how in that instant all the fear vanished. Now that memory felt like a weapon they were using against me. Aunt Susan shared how her own daughter had struggled with similar issues and found peace through faith. Each word layered more guilt on my shoulders. I wondered if I was the villain in their story, the daughter who chose selfish desire over duty. Yet when I thought of Zara waiting in her apartment with dinner ready, and a hug that always made the world right. I knew the love was real. The session ended with them praying over me, hands on my shoulders, voices rising in unison. I left the house that night feeling shattered but determined. The intervention had only just begun and the real tests were coming. My mind drifted back to the day I met Zara, as if escaping the present pain could save me. It was at a professional development workshop for educators in a bustling convention center downtown. She was presenting on creative ways to engage students in art, and her passion was magnetic. After her session, I approached her to ask a question, and we ended up talking for hours over coffee. She told me about her journey as a mixed-race woman navigating her own identity, and I opened up about the expectations weighing on me. There was no lightning bolt but a slow realization that I had been living half a life. Our relationship grew in secret, at first stolen moments after work, and weekend getaways where we could be ourselves without fear. Zara showed me a world beyond the rigid structure of my family's values, a world where love was not a checklist, but a feeling that made you stronger. When I finally told my family, the reaction was immediate and devastating. Mom cried for days, Dad stopped speaking to me, and Athena was the most vocal. She cornered me in the kitchen one evening, her face red with anger. How can you do this to us, Kayla? After everything Mom and Dad did for you? This is not normal and it will destroy your life. I tried to reason with her, explaining that my love for Zara was real and pure, but she wouldn't listen. That opposition from Athena set the tone for the months that followed. Family gatherings became battlegrounds with passive-aggressive comments and sudden silences when Zara was mentioned. I started skipping events to avoid the conflict, but that only made the guilt worse. Zara bore it with grace, but I saw the toll it took on her, the way her smile faded when I canceled plans because of family drama. Back in the intervention, Dad took over, reading from a list of concerns they had compiled. Your career as a teacher could be at risk if this gets out. Think about the children you teach. What example are you setting? The words made my blood boil because I was a damn good teacher, and my personal life had never affected my work. Yet the fear they planted took root. What if they were right? Society was progressing, but in our community the old prejudices lingered. I had heard stories of other women like me losing jobs or being shunned. My internal voice screamed that hiding who I was had almost broken me before Zara, but the opposing voice whispered about the stability I was risking. Athena nodded along with Dad's points, her silence feeling like agreement, and another layer of hurt. As they pushed harder, Mom brought up the idea of counseling, a Christian therapist who specialized in these issues. The suggestion felt like a slap. They saw my love as an illness to be fixed. I looked at each face, searching for any sign of understanding, but found only determination. The psychological pressure was immense, making me question my own sanity at times. Was I the one being stubborn? Zara had her own struggles. Her family was more accepting, but she faced external judgment and the fear that I might cave under pressure. We had fights about it, where she accused me of putting family first always, and I defended myself by saying it wasn't that simple. The love we shared was the anchor, but even that was being tested by the constant drama. The conversation turned to specific incidents, like the time Athena saw us holding hands at a park and later confronted me in tears, saying I was embarrassing the family. Her reaction had been so strong it made me withdraw for weeks. Zara had been patient, but the pain was there. In the living room, as the sun set outside, I felt the weight of all those moments pressing down. The drama was not just about the breakup they wanted, it was about control and the fear of the unknown. My decision to stand my ground so far had come at the cost of peace and relationships I valued. Yet walking away from Zara seemed impossible. The tension was rising, and I knew this intervention was only the beginning of a larger storm that would force everyone to face their truths. The counselor called in, and her calm voice only made the room feel heavier as she asked me to share my feelings openly. I spoke about how Zara made me feel complete, how her laughter filled the empty spaces I didn't know I had. They countered with concerns about the long-term effects on my mental health and the community. Each round of arguments chipped away at my confidence, but also strengthened my resolve in quiet ways. I texted Zara during a break telling her I loved her, and she replied with a photo of us from our last trip to the hill country, reminding me why this fight mattered. The price was becoming clear: the emotional exhaustion, the fear of losing everything, but the alternative of living a lie was worse. Athena watched me closely during the breaks, her expression shifting from anger to something softer, perhaps doubt. The day ended with them scheduling another session, and me driving home in silence, the weight of their words following me like shadows. Zara met me at the door with open arms, and we talked late into the night about the possibilities, the fears, and the hope that one day the family would see the beauty in our love. The pastor joined via video call, and his words were like fuel on the fire. He spoke of love and redemption, but it all circled back to the idea that my relationship was a test from God when I was failing. I sat there clenching my fists, fighting the urge to run out the door to Zara's apartment where she was waiting anxiously for my text. She had offered to come, but I refused, not wanting to subject her to this. That protection came with its own guilt because she deserved to be fought for openly. Athena shifted in her seat several times, and I wondered what was going through her mind. She had always been the golden child, following the path laid out, attending church regularly, and dating the right kind of boys. My deviation threatened her worldview in ways I was only beginning to understand. They brought out letters they had written, each one detailing how my choices affected them. Mom's letter was the hardest, describing sleepless nights and fears that I would end up alone and regretful. It painted a picture of a future without grandkids, without the family legacy continuing in the traditional way. I cried silently as she read it aloud, the emotion raw and real. Was I robbing them of their dreams for the sake of my own? The moral dilemma tore at me. On one side was the authenticity I had found with Zara, the way she made me laugh and feel safe. On the other was the loyalty to family, the debt I felt for their sacrifices. Society reinforced their side with subtle and not so subtle messages that queer relationships were less valid. The internal conflict was a constant battleground where no choice felt completely right. Zara's face flashed in my mind, her warm brown eyes, and the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when nervous. Our happy moments were the opposite of this room, the picnics where we talked about everything and nothing, the support she gave me when work was tough. She had her own scars from past relationships and societal judgment, but together we were building something resilient. The intervention ignored all that, reducing our bond to a mistake. As the evening wore on, the arguments became more personal, attacking my character, suggesting that I was influenced by bad company or seeking attention. Athena added her own story about how my coming out had made her question her own place in the family, and how she felt betrayed by my secrecy. Her words revealed the depth of her hurt, and for a moment I saw the human behind the opposition. The pressure was mounting to the point where I began to waver. Maybe a break from Zara would give me clarity, they suggested. The idea was presented as reasonable, but it felt like the first step to permanent separation. My mind raced with the possible outcomes. If I agreed, would the family heal, or would the resentment linger? If I refused, would I lose them forever? The social consequences loomed large in our tight-knit community, where gossip traveled fast and judgment was swift. I thought about my job, my friends who had started to distance themselves. The price of this love was higher than I had anticipated, and yet the alternative felt like a slow death of the self. Athena caught my eye, and there was a flicker of something new in her expression, doubt perhaps, or empathy that had not been there before. The night ended without resolution, but the seeds of the coming high drama were planted. Everyone was exhausted, but the real confrontation was building toward a breaking point that would change us all. I left the house that night, driving through the familiar streets of Austin, the lights blurring through my tears. Zara met me at her place, and we sat on the balcony talking for hours about the future, the what-ifs, and the strength we found in each other. Her calm presence reminded me that love was not a weakness, but a force. Yet the words from the intervention echoed, making me question everything. The next morning I woke to a message from Athena asking to meet privately. I agreed, hoping for a crack in her opposition. We met at a quiet park, and she admitted the intervention had made her uncomfortable too, but she still believed it was for my good. The conversation was tense, but it planted the first hint of change in her. Back at home, the family pressure continued with calls and texts urging me to attend the next session. The betrayal from those closest to me stung, but it also fueled my determination to stand firm. The moral questions kept me awake at night. Was obedience the greater good? Or was living my truth the real path to happiness? Zara faced her own challenges at work, where a colleague made a comment about family values after hearing rumors. We held each other through the nights, talking about the costs and the rewards. The drama was far from over, but in those moments of quiet connection, I found the courage to keep going. The next day they reconvened, earlier this time with more intensity. Mom had barely slept and her eyes were puffy as she pleaded with me to think about the legacy. Dad was more firm, laying out ultimatums about the family business and how my involvement might be affected if I continued down this path. The betrayal I felt was profound. This was not just emotional manipulation, it was using my livelihood as leverage. Zara had texted me late last night saying she believed in us, and that no matter what we would face it together. Her strength gave me courage, but the cumulative effect of the intervention was wearing me down. I started to voice my doubts out loud, which only encouraged them. Athena had been quiet most of the morning, but as the accusations peaked with Aunt Susan calling my relationship selfish and sinful, something in her snapped. I saw it in her posture, the way she straightened up and her face flushed. "Stop it, all of you," she said, her voice louder than I had heard in years. "I've been sitting here listening to you tear Kayla apart, and I've been part of it for too long. But I've watched her with Zara, and it's not what you think. It's real love, the kind that makes her better, not worse." The room went silent, everyone, including me, stunned into stillness. Athena, the sister who had opposed me the strongest, the one who had argued with fire in her eyes, was now turning the tables. She continued, her words pouring out like a dam had broken. "I've seen the way Kayla smiles when she talks about Zara. I've seen her help others at work with more patience. Maybe we've been wrong to judge so harshly. The Bible talks about love too, not just rules." The shock was palpable. Dad demanded to know what had gotten into her. Mom looked betrayed, as if both daughters had now turned against the family values. Athena stood up, pacing, as she explained her own journey the past few months. She had started questioning some of the rigid teachings after seeing the pain it caused. A friend at work had shared her own story of losing a sibling to similar family pressure, and it made Athena reflect on our situation. She admitted her initial opposition came from fear of change, fear of what others would say, fear that it reflected badly on her. But seeing the toll on me had awakened her to the harm in their approach. This defense came at a cost for her too, as the family immediately turned their attention to her, questioning her faith and loyalty. The confrontation escalated into a full family meltdown, with accusations flying in all directions. I sat there processing the unexpected ally in Athena. Her stand was not perfect, she still had reservations, but it was a start, a crack in the wall of prejudice. For the first time I felt a glimmer of hope amid the chaos. Zara would be amazed when I told her. But the drama was far from over. The intervention that was meant to separate us had instead highlighted the fractures in our family and forced a reckoning with long-held beliefs. My heart swelled with gratitude for Athena, but I knew the road ahead would be filled with more pain, as everyone adjusted to this new dynamic. The decisions we made in that moment would define the relationships for years to come, each carrying its own heavy price. After the session, Athena and I talked alone for the first time in months. She cried as she apologized for the harsh words and the distance. I forgave her because I saw the courage it took to speak up. Zara joined us later at a neutral cafe, and the three of us sat together awkwardly at first, but the conversation flowed into shared stories and laughter. The backlash from the family was immediate, with calls accusing Athena of betrayal and me of manipulation. The price we paid was real: lost invitations to family events, strained conversations with relatives. Yet in the quiet moments with Zara and the new bond with Athena, I felt a strength I had never known. The societal prejudice continued, with whispers at my school, and Zara losing a small gallery show due to rumors. We leaned on each other, the love becoming a shield. Athena faced her own isolation from old friends, but she stood firm. The awakening was happening for all of us, slowly, painfully but surely. After Athena's outburst, the room erupted in chaos. Dad raised his voice for the first time in years, demanding that Athena sit down and think about what she was saying. Mom burst into tears, saying that she had lost both her daughters to this influence. The aunts tried to mediate, but sides were forming. I stood up, finally finding my voice. This is exactly why I hid it for so long. Because love should not cause this much pain. But it does when fear rules over understanding. Athena and I exchanged a look of solidarity that we hadn't shared in years. Her defense had cost her the position of the good daughter, and now she was facing the same scrutiny. In the days that followed the intervention, the family dynamic shifted dramatically. Mom and Dad limited contact with both of us. The business suffered as conversations became strained, and I stepped back from some responsibilities to give space. Zara was overjoyed at the news, but cautious knowing that Athena's change was new and fragile. We met at our favorite cafe, where I recounted every detail. She held my hand across the table, her touch a reminder of why we fought. Our relationship deepened through the trial, becoming a source of strength rather than just joy. We talked about the future, more seriously considering moving to a more accepting area, but deciding to stay and face it for now. Athena and I had long conversations late into the night. She revealed her own internal struggles, how the pressure to be perfect had suffocated her, and seeing my courage inspired her to question things. There were still disagreements she wasn't fully affirming, but her willingness to protect us was a massive step. The societal backlash was real. Whispers at church and in the community reached us. Some friends distanced themselves while others surprisingly offered support. The prejudice was not gone, but facing it together made it bearable. The psychological toll was evident in sleepless nights and moments of doubt, where I wondered if the family pain was worth it. Zara had her own moments of frustration, feeling like the villain in someone else's story. The awakening was gradual for all of us. I learned that love required not just passion but resilience and the willingness to pay the price of authenticity. Athena learned that her opposition had been rooted in her own insecurities and protecting the family image rather than genuine care at times. The betrayal I felt from the initial intervention lingered, but her defense helped heal some wounds. Family therapy was suggested but rejected by our parents for now. The rifts were deep but not irreparable. We started small gestures like Athena joining Zara and me for a casual lunch, where awkwardness gave way to tentative understanding. The social drama continued with relatives taking sides, but it forced conversations that had been avoided for generations. Through it all, the core conflict remained the balance between honoring where I came from and embracing who I was. The costs were tangible: strained family ties, emotional exhaustion, and a redefined sense of belonging. Yet the growth was undeniable. I became more assertive in all areas of life in Zara, and I built a support network of chosen family. Athena found her own voice in advocating for understanding within our community. The story was not a fairy tale ending but a realistic portrayal of the messy path to acceptance. The months that followed tested us further, with a cousin leaking the story to the extended family, leading to more confrontations and lost connections. Zara and I faced a rough patch when the stress affected our communication, but we worked through it with honest talks and counseling on our own terms. Athena sacrificed her close relationship with Mom for a time, but she gained a deeper bond with me. Each of us paid a personal price. Athena lost some friends, I lost professional opportunities. Zara carried the emotional load of being the outsider turned family, but the trade-offs led to awakening a new understanding that love and family could coexist if we allowed room for growth. The drama of those early days became the foundation for stronger relationships forged in honesty and courage. Months later, as the dust settled, we gathered for a tense family dinner, the first since the intervention. The atmosphere was fragile, with careful topics and forced smiles. Mom hugged me longer than usual, and Dad asked about my work without the usual undertones. Athena sat next to Zara, engaging her in conversation about art, which was a huge step. The changes were not complete. There were still awkward silences and unresolved issues, but the door was open. I reflected on the journey, the shocking way it all began, and the unexpected hero in my sister. The price we all paid was high: family harmony fractured, trust tested, and personal beliefs challenged. Zara and I grew closer, our bond forged in fire, becoming unbreakable. We celebrated small victories like a weekend trip where we felt free to be open. Looking back, I realized that the intervention, while painful, was a catalyst for necessary growth. It exposed the cracks in our family's foundation, the rigid expectations that left no room for difference. My choice to fight for the relationship came with sacrifices, but it also brought clarity about what truly mattered. Athena's transformation from opponent to defender showed that people can change when confronted with love and action. Yet the scars remained reminders of the deep divisions that prejudice and fear create. Society at large still had work to do, but in our small world we were making progress, one conversation at a time. The psychological and social drama had tested every limit, pushing us to our breaking points and beyond. In quiet moments I still wrestle with the what-ifs. What if I had given in to the pressure? Would the family be whole, or would I be the one broken? These questions have no easy answers, but they shape the woman I am becoming. Zara has been my rock through it all, her patience and love a constant. Together with Athena's support, we navigate the ongoing challenges. The experience taught me that awakening often comes through pain, and that true family is defined not just by blood, but by the willingness to stand up for what is right even when it costs everything. As I sit here today with the people I love most around me, in one way or another I can't help but ask, was my sister right to betray family tradition to protect our love, or did defending us cause more harm than the silence ever could?